What if the future of eCom wasn't Facebook ads or Amazon, but TikTok Shop and social commerce?
So when I heard TikTok Shop was doing it that way, it intrigued me. And so I started to look for an agency that I could work with to start running TikTok shops.
That's what Navi, today's guest, thinks. She's got a long history in the influencer and affiliate worlds, working with brands like eBay, Sephora, and Wish.
So I went from like product management to creative operations, and then it fit me so well. And then I went into affiliate marketing.
But now she's got one goal: to help brands scale TikTok Shop campaigns from zero to millions of dollars GMV.
But if you get to that point, all you want to really do is TikTok Shop, just post the same products over and over and over again.
Join us in today's episode as we explore how to know if your brand is ready for TikTok Shop.
I know TikTok Shop looks great from the outside and you see a lot of competitors in there, but are you actually going to make money? Because you need to make sure that you're actually going to make a decent margin.
The playbooks for product seeding, building out your own affiliate network, and live shopping.
I think live shopping, there's a lot of creators now that are going live themselves and making a lot of money.
Why margins matter more than hype, and what's next for influencer marketing as TikTok Shop matures.
The other thing I always make sure of is if margins look good, how much are you willing to sample out? A lot of agencies out there are looking to just get as many samples out to as many hands as possible, which makes sense.
So if you're wondering how to win on TikTok Shop, then this episode will give you an unfiltered roadmap. It's not one to miss.
I always say just be nice to yourself. Be kind to yourself. I think it's so hard to be like, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. That's where my project management lifestyle and like skill set really comes into play. We will sit down and map out our goals for the quarter, and that's it.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying the videos, why not consider subscribing? We drop bi-weekly content that will help you improve your business right here on the channel. Navi, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jordan.
Cool. I want to kick straight off by your background. I know at the minute you're obviously running the TikTok Shop agency, but you've done a lot of stuff in the kind of affiliate influencer, world before that. Can you just talk to that background and how you ended up here today?
Yeah, I always say I kind of done a little bit of everything. I actually started off in like project management, product management space, and I've always kind of fallen into whatever I've done. And because I work in the Bay Area, I've kind of worked at all the bigger brands and the tech world here, right? So I've gone from like eBay to Sephora to HubSpot to Wish, all kind of in the eCom space, and evolving my career at each. So I went from like product management to creative operations, which I had never heard of before, and then it fit me so well. And then from creative operations, I went into affiliate marketing. And really, it was like each time I took that step, it was like, oh, we don't have anybody doing this. Can someone learn? And I'm like, oh, yeah, like I'll do it. And so it would really be like, all right, I would raise my hand, I would learn the skill, and then I would end up doing it. And so I've done that most of my career, and now very happily ensconced in the influencer TikTok Shop space. And I enjoy it here.
Amazing. What does creative operations actually mean?
It means operationalizing the creative process. So really being an advocate for your marketing managers, but then also being an advocate for your designers and your social media specialists and making sure that the work is actually efficiently happening.
Mm-hmm. And was this kind of always working with influencers and affiliates, or was there other kind of different creative outlets?
Yeah, no. So at eBay is where I started. I actually managed the whole site. So I was creative operations. Yeah. So I was creative operations for all of North America. So it was really managing the website, the social. And at that time, influencers were like starting to kind of become big. And so that's where I really started to dip my toes into working with creators and influencers to create content for some of our used luxury goods.
But before that, was it more kind of, I don't want to say stock footage, but like...
Yeah, banners. And yeah, it was really just website static images.
And just out of interest, when did that change start to shift and it was more kind of people-centric or influencer-focused?
It started at eBay, and then when I went over to HubSpot, it was the same thing. It was like 50-50. It was like 50% I would do static images for their inbound event, and then 50% we were starting to launch their podcast network. So working with podcast creators. And then really at wish.com is where everything kind of shifted. I had a manager who was like, I think you'd be great at running influencer marketing. And I said, I've been kind of doing it, but I don't know if like I'm the right skill set. And he said, we need somebody who operationally can scale a program. And he's like, and you can do that. And so I went all in with like this huge goal of having 1,000 micro creators posting for Wish continuously. And we were able to hit that pretty quickly. And I realized, you know what? All of the skill sets that I have just kind of help me scale a program that really, really needs to be operationally scaled. And I think a lot of brands don't do it that way. And so I was able to scale it up really quickly, though, because of um, the blocks that I placed to create the whole process of recruiting and then keeping those influencers.
Can you just talk to at scale how you manage like 1,000 people? That sounds insane.
Yeah, it was like a team of like four of us. So it wasn't a very large team at all, but it was really we used Grin as our CRM and really just recruiting those creators. So I had somebody who was only focused on recruiting. Then I had a creator then I had somebody on my team that was only focused on getting out free samples and getting the content. And then my main focus, and I feel like all three of these working together is what kind of led to us being able to retain 1,000 creators, is I would build the relationships with those creators. So we would do like open office hours 3 times a week where creators could just stop by, meet our team, and we would walk them through, even if it had nothing to do with Wish's content, even if they wanted us to look at some other piece of content and they wanted feedback, we would be there. And so creators would just like stick around for month over month over month. We weren't the highest paying brand by far, but because we placed so much emphasis on building their brand for them, helping them, they would come back over and over. And so we had a lot of loyal creators at the time working
And is
with us.
that in-person office hours?
I wish. No, virtual virtual office hours, but people showed up. We used to have like 50 to 100 creators sometimes showing up to ask questions. And then they would build relationships with each other. And then they would all send me friend requests on TikTok or LinkedIn, and we'd all be in group conversations. And it was like this really cool thing. So when Wish, stopped operations in North America, a lot of those creators reached out and said, "Where are you going next? What's next? Can we come wherever you're going?" So it was working, whatever we were doing.
That's very interesting. And you mentioned there as well having this kind of learning mindset. Where does that come from?
You know what? My background is I was a nurse originally. Yeah. So I think like for me, I've always only learned. So I bring that into like my daily life. I've only ever learned how to do things on my own. And so for me, it's like when I went back into sales and then marketing, I had to learn everything. So I think my mindset just continuously keeps trying to learn and iterate and change things around to help scale things. And so then I want to help do that with other people. And that's where like the creator space comes in, because you're always continuously, a lot of brands aren't helping creators. And so I view it very differently, where it's like, yeah, I want to do well by the brands, but then I want to do well by the creators as well. And so continuously teaching them is how I learn. So that's how I just kind of push that learning onto other people.
No, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
I want to obviously talk now about TikTok Shop. Can we just walk through at a high level how you got from the kind of more traditional influencer model and started to focus on TikTok Shop?
Yeah, so when I was at Wish, they wanted Wish to come on. TikTok Shop wanted Wish to come on as one of its initial retailers. And I think it was just too much of a tech debt for Wish. But at that time, I was like, oh, this is interesting, because at Wish.com, we were paying a small flat fee, but really we were paying really high commissions. And a lot of creators wouldn't work with us because they'd be like, no, we really need like $3,000 as a flat fee. And I'm like, I'm not going to pay over 100, but you're going to make a lot of money off the commission if you do this right. So when I heard TikTok Shop was doing it that way, it intrigued me. And when I left Wish, I decided that I was going to go into the TikTok Shop space. And so I started to look for agencies for the first time in my career, look for an agency that I could work with to start running TikTok shops. And really, it was exactly what I was doing at wish.com, just in a much more succinct, easier way. At Wish, I actually created a checkout experience on wish.com that creators could create their own storefront. And people could go into their storefront and actually buy whatever they were looking for, kind of what Amazon had eventually done and what everyone else had, and so TikTok Shop just kind of took that a step further. So it was really easy for me to, I think, pivot. I think that's why I was able to pivot quicker than other people that were traditional influencer marketers, because I was already kind of doing it on a performance marketing base.
Okay. And then how did you end up at Sova today and kind of building out your own agency?
Yeah. So I realized pretty quickly, I'm a mom of two. I have like a really people always say I'm a kind of a masochist when it comes to work. I always try to take on more and more and more. And it includes like being a mom. Like I'm also doing all their activities. I like to be on like the parent club at school, like all of this kind of stuff. And I realized that I really wanted to work somewhere where I could have that flexibility of that lifestyle, but also work really, really hard when I want to work hard. So I decided that the agency probably wasn't the right life for me. I left and I started to consult. And when I was consulting, John Giorso reached out and said, "Hey, how would you like to start your own agency?" It wasn't as easy as that. It took us like 6 months to figure everything out. But essentially, it was like, I think you do this really well. Do you want to do it together? And that was the first time that I was like, oh, I could probably do this on my own. And I wanted to open up an agency where men and women could kind of work on their own, in their own way, in their own pace.
Why did you take the step from kind of freelancing, working with a couple of people, to starting your own agency? What was the reason behind that?
I think I've always had an entrepreneur bug. My parents have been business owners my whole life, so I've watched them do it on their own. I think I've always wanted to kind of have something of my own. I just always was a little bit it's scary to go from like a consistent paycheck to all of a sudden have to put your own money into something and your own time. So for me, it was always like, oh, I want to do it. I just don't know if it's the right time with having kids as young as I do. I don't know if it's the right time for me to like take this step. And I think when John approached me, I kind of got the reassurance of having somebody who's done this before for me to be like, okay, now I have a partner who I can work with really closely and build something great. 'Cause I know the execution side. I can execute on TikTok Shop all day long. The side that I was always scared of, and I think a lot of people when they're trying to make the jump are scared of, are the entrepreneurs, the side that we don't know, forecasting, budgeting, you know what I mean, hiring, like all of that kind of stuff. John fills in those gaps for me. So for me, it was kind of a no-brainer to be like, okay, let's partner together and do this thing.
Okay. I guess final question on this before we talk more kind of specifically about Sova. When you're making that decision, aside from having John kind of fill in the gaps, was there anything else that convinced you that now was the right time?
Yeah, I think TikTok Shop is like one of those things where once we initially overcame the hurdle of the ban, I knew it was like, that's it. I was like, if it's not banned now, it's not going to happen. So, and there, people are making so much money on it. And I still think there's an early adopter advantage to larger brands being on TikTok Shop, and a lot of larger brands aren't taking the opportunity. So I knew that I had a large network that could do that. And as I was freelancing, brands just kept approaching me. Hey, can you do this for us too? Can you do this for us too? And I was very closely. John always laughs. He's like, I think you would have done this eventually anyways, because you would have hit a point where you couldn't manage all the clients that you were bringing on board. And I said, yeah, that sounds right. That's probably what it is. I probably just wouldn't have grown as quickly as I did. But I think TikTok Shop is like, when Amazon first launched and everyone wasn't sure about Amazon, TikTok Shop's the same. It was the same thing 6 months ago. It's the same thing right now, where like either brands are going to be on it and they're going to make a ton of money, or they're going to miss it and they're going to join late enough where it's not going to make as much of an impact.
Okay. Let's get into that then. So for brands that are looking to start on TikTok Shop, what would you say to them when they're maybe in the evaluation process?
Yeah, I actually sometimes even turn clients down because of this, but I say like look at your unit economics, run the numbers. I know TikTok Shop looks great from the outside and you see a lot of competitors in there, but are you actually going to make money? Because it's so performance marketing heavy, you need to make sure that everyone who's taking a piece out from your cost of goods, like that you're actually going to make a decent margin. If you're only making a 10% margin, you can't survive off of that. It's probably not, you probably don't want to scale on TikTok Shop, right? So I always run people through, like I have brands that'll be like, "Yeah, we're ready to sign up." I'm like, "No, no, no. Let's talk through your cost of goods first. Let's talk through your unit economics first. Let's make sure you're actually going to make money." Because I don't want them to leave 3 months later because they're losing just a ton of money. But then I have some brands, Jordan, that'll say, "Well, no, we know we're going to lose money, but we just want brand awareness. We want the brand awareness. We want consumers to try our products, so we're willing to put that time and effort and money into it."
Okay. For those in that first camp who are kind of looking more closely at their financial profile before making the decision, what are we kind of looking at here in terms of targets?
Yeah, so each brand is different on how much margin they wanna keep. I think most brands I've noticed are like 30 to 40% margin is like their healthy point. Some even are willing to go down to 20%. What they have to remember is like TikTok's gonna take a chunk out. Creators are going to take their own chunk out, and then whatever agency you hire is also going to take a commission. So you have kind of three people taking pieces out, and depending on on those pieces, I have some brands that will have like a product that, let's say, is like $35, but then their actual cost of goods is like $18. And they have a very small margin, right, to work with, you know? So at that point, it's like, how much money are you going to actually make, and is it worth it? And we've turned products down because of it and picked something else. Typically, these larger brands will have a large portfolio, so you can kind of pick from what you want. And that's the other thing brands always have a hard time with. They can't just pick one. You just want one. You want to start with one hero product that you're sampling out. You can have as many as you want in your actual store on TikTok Shop, but you want one that all the creators are talking about. And sometimes larger brands have a hard time picking there too.
And what advice do you have for businesses to pick that hero SKU?
Yeah, I always say when you pick a hero SKU, you want to pick something that's going to be that is looks good on camera and can actually be viral. So, like for some of the skincare brands, like eye patches do really well because the creator can keep the eye patch on. She can hold it up to the camera, all those kind of things. And it really does well versus just like a skincare cream, So something that actually holds someone's attention, because you'll get a halo effect eventually where people will actually look at your TikTok shop or Amazon storefront, for your other products. But you really want to get them in with something that's going to, I mean, like when you're scrolling TikTok, I'm just like scrolling. You want something that actually catches people's attention and will stop them. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, actually, I have been looking for something like this.
Okay. And going back to that kind of margin profile point, is that 20 to 30% after all the cuts have been taken? Or is it before? And what are the rough cuts that we can expect to give away for those kind of two or three pieces of the pie you mentioned?
Yeah, so I think it depends. So TikTok has like a rolling scale, so it's anywhere from like 3% to 7% that they're going to take depending on the niche that you're in and if you're brand new to the marketplace. I always end up going on the higher end because just a little bit more conservative. So I'll tell them, okay, the maximum they're probably going to take out is about 7%. So let's go ahead and estimate that. Creators are going to take anywhere from 12% to 22%, depending on same thing, niche. Depends on where your niche is and what creators are getting from other brands. And then agencies will typically take anywhere from 5% to 15%. So yeah, Sova sits at 10%. So we sit like firmly right in the middle of that. Because even our retainers are like very low. So we really, really hedge our bets with our commission. But after all of that's done and said, like, are you still making a 30% margin? Is this still healthy for you?
And I guess like my background is in the D2C space, these brands are giving Facebook, especially for lower ticket products, they're giving Facebook or Instagram more than that in terms of a percentage, and it's not percentage, right? It's kind of fixed cost. So this is
Correct.
completely variable, right?
Yep. Yeah. And a lot of brands will say that. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're already kind of doing this with some of our other marketers." So it just makes sense. Yeah.
So let's assume we've kind of calculated that margin profile. We're happy to go ahead. What's next in your kind of framework or on TikTok Shop?
Yeah, the other thing I always make sure of is if margins look good, how much are you willing to sample out? So now I approach sampling very differently, though. I think a lot of agencies out there are looking to just get as many samples out to as many hands as possible, which makes sense for things that are smaller cost of goods. So if someone has a sample that's $2 for them to ship out, yeah, great. Like let's send 1,000 of those out. Like that 100% makes sense, and just do like a large spray out and see who responds and who actually builds content. Where this starts to get harder, and especially for a lot of my clients, they're higher AOV clients. They have products that are $120, $400. And so you can only ship out, 25 units a month to really like, and that's all they can afford until they start to see a return on investment in TikTok shop. And then they'll probably start to put more in. So we really then at that point, I start having sample conversations. What are we sampling at? How many samples can you actually afford? And then when we start having those conversations, that's where I start to then set expectations for cold start. So how long is it actually going to take? So now if a brand is willing to send 1,000 samples, yeah, within like 2 months, you're going to start making, decent GMV and revenue. If you're only willing to send out 25 samples because of your cost of goods, it's probably going to take you closer to 6 months to start seeing a very positive response because you're only getting 25. If everybody builds piece of content, you're only getting 25, pieces of content every single month. And so it really just depends, but I take on both. I think certain agencies don't. I take on both. I do high AOV and low AOV, and I just vary my strategy for each.
So I was actually going to kind of touch on this. You said some of these ticket prices are $100 plus. I thought TikTok Shop was, $20 to $30 only. Can you just talk to that?
Yeah, I think everybody says that that it's $20 to $30 only, but I've actually done really, really, really well with skincare brands that are higher than that. And for each of them, it varies. So I remember for True Botanicals, I was like, that's one of my first clients. I was like, oh, I wonder how they're going to do. Are they going to do well with affiliates? Are they going to not do well with affiliates? And like in between, I was like, I kind of want to do live shopping for them. I've never done lives for anybody before on my own. And I'm like, I wanted to kind of do live for them. So I did like a casting call for a live creator. It turned out Jordan, the best person for the job was my sister-in-law who lives out of San Diego. And she loves skincare. And so I went to her apartment, got her all set up, and she goes live for us like 3 times a week now, 3 hours a time. And they're making really good money off of their lives. Their affiliate content, I think we're going to start putting performance marketing spend and probably start to see something come out of that. But really, their real moneymaker is lives. And I have a feel I just recently bought a fridge off of Live, like a mini fridge off of a Live, and I literally only bought it because I asked the creator, I was like, "Hey, do you know if you can move the shelves?" And so she literally like stopped her live, moved the shelves for me, and I saw her do it and I was like, "Oh, that's exactly what I need. Okay, done, buy." And it was like a $400 fridge and I bought it. That's where the real magic I think starts to come in for these high AOV products.
That's very interesting. I do want to talk about lives and kind of ads as well, but first
Yes.
I want to kind of talk about product features because you've said a few things there that to me, they're not TikTok Shop products. So I guess my question now is, are there any products that you look at and you would be like, no way is this going to work on TikTok Shop, or is that just kind of like a misconception?
I think TikTok Shop is now maturing just like Amazon did. I think it's a similar trajectory. I think they're maturing now to the point of like, now I've seen custom jewelry being sold on TikTok Shop too, which is like thousands of dollars. So I do think it's evolving. I just think it's a matter of um, the playbook really matters. It can't be a one size fits all, And so it really, and a lot of brands I talk to, they're always like, oh, we only hear that you can only send out like tons of samples and you have to be between $20 to $30. And maybe it's the fact that I just continue to learn and continue to iterate, but, like, for me, I was like, "No, I bet we can do it. I bet we can do it. I bet there's a consumer out there that has the profile that you're looking for, that's willing to spend that extra money just when the education comes out." So, like, for a lot of our skincare brands, it's, like, educating people on why they need to pay $120 for a skincare cream, versus, the $30 one that they see on TikTok Shop, but it seems the education component seems to work.
Okay, interesting. And again, you've touched on this, another perhaps misconception of mine. Are there certain sectors that TikTok, sectors of product that TikTok Shop won't work for, or perhaps demographics of customers that aren't reachable?
I think people used to think, oh, like same thing, big ticket items, but now I've seen like couches selling on TikTok. I bought my little chair over here off of a TikTok review. And I use TikTok almost as a search engine now. So I kind of feel like there's nothing that you can't sell. Maybe you can't sell cars, but I don't know. I digress. Amazon has started selling cars on Amazon, so I maybe eventually you can on TikTok. But I think like there really isn't anything that you can't sell on TikTok as long as you can ship it out and it's a direct to consumer good.
Okay. Going back to, talking about the playbook then, so we're shipping samples out initially. Am I correct in assuming that, you should just be sending as much as you can kind of afford out and, that will shorten the learning curve or the time to profit?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I do think that you should be able to send out as many as possible. What I think brands don't understand though is sometimes affiliates just aren't asking for your samples. So a lot of it is like relationship building in the beginning. So like I've seen people be like, I can send 1,000 samples. We're not going to hit 1,000 the first month. Nobody knows your brand, right? So like there's a lot of relationship building you have to do the first month, which is part of the cold start. So there's a lot of like introducing your brand, talking about, what the benefits of your brand is, doing a back and forth with a couple of creators a couple of times. That's where building that community, I think, is really important, because if you have creators that you know are going to do well, are going to like the product, and you've worked with them before, you can outreach them and they already kind of trust you. The problem right now is, and I'm not logged into his TikTok. I wish I was logged into my husband's TikTok. I could show you. They literally get hundreds of DMs a day asking them to look at their product. So it's getting through all of that mass clutter to get the actual samples out into the affiliate's hand. And I think enough people don't talk about that. I think enough people talk about like what brands should do, but enough people don't talk about the hardships it is to actually get creators to create content for a brand.
And I guess for you guys, if you're working with a brand, you already have a lot of those relationships, or are you starting from scratch each time?
Yeah, no, we have those relationships, and like what I do is I build out those relationships. So like I have a lot of mom creator relationships currently. I've been in that space for a long time. So for a lot of our brands that are like, oh yeah, we want to go after moms. I'm like, oh cool. Like I have hundreds of creators that we could go after like really easily. And they all have worked with me for years. So they all really trust me. And so I'm able to kind of do that. But then for some, like supplements or something, we have to start from scratch. But really, what we do is we invite those creators onto some kind of chat platform. I keep changing my mind, which is why I'm not saying something specific. I kind of want to test out WhatsApp communities because I feel like WhatsApp is much more adoptable by people. But then I invite them and I invite the brand reps to this like one chat so we can all kind of talk about things. And I know a lot of agencies talk about gamification, but really we do gamify the system, but in a simple way. We just offer higher percentages and commissions, which at the end of the day is like really all creators care about is like making more money. So that's what we do.
And how much kind of training or oversight are you giving? Let's say it's, a new supplement brand in a new space. You've found a bunch of creators. What do you say to them? Is it just shipping out product, or is there more to it?
No, you ship out product, and then we also we create like these Canva briefs for creators. And then for our more visual creators, we're starting to now start to test out actually filming a loom and sending it out because we're realizing that a lot of creators don't read through the 5-page document that you send them. So it's like, okay, what can you do instead? We're going to start testing out, okay, what if we just send a loom with one of our team members talking about the product, and the do's and don'ts of what they should say. I think that's probably one of the hardest things is when you have a lot of do's and don'ts, creators are just like, especially TikTok shop creators, a lot of them are brand new. They're not reading those. They're just so excited to get the sample. They're just like putting it out there. And I have a lot of creators who will get samples and a lot of them don't get the briefs. And so it's educating creators on like, yeah, you have to follow the brief. Like the brief is there for a reason. You can't, we're not too prescriptive in the briefs at all, but there are do's and don'ts in there that I think every creator should be looking at because it's not just a violation for the brand if we mess up. It's a violation point against the creator as well. And, TikTok's notorious for never fixing violations. So you want to make sure that you're not violating policy.
Okay. And once you start to get kind of content out, results, etc., how do you kind of optimize the content or that content creation process with the creators?
Yeah. You have to look really closely at which creators are building content that looks good and actually fits brand guidelines. And you also want to look at creators that maybe their content doesn't look as great, but they're driving a lot of revenue. And then you want to churn really quickly. You don't want to send another sample out to creators who maybe A, haven't built out content like but then B, maybe creators that are building content that doesn't really match the brand guidelines, right? Of what the brand's kind of looking for. And you can then start to see the other kind of secret piece of all of this is like what kind of content is actually driving sales. And you kind of never know. I remember when I first started in TikTok shop, I was like looking at Goalie's profile because Goalie's like been like the number one supplement brand for so long on TikTok shop. And one of the videos that sold the most was literally like you couldn't even see the guy's face. You could just see like this part of his body and he was holding a Goalie package up. I just remember he had lint all over his black shirt and he sold like $500,000 worth of product off the video. Yeah. Yeah. So like what works? And a lot of creators then adopted it. So I'm assuming that whoever was working at Goalie saw that and said, okay, this really works well. So it's up to us to see, okay, what's working and then let the other creators know, oh my God, this piece of like this hook works really well, or this type of visual works really well, or this type of demo works really well. And so it's letting our top creators, just creators in general know, hey, this is what works really well. Maybe try creating a piece of content this way.
Okay. And will you kind of segment out the top performing creators and give them more kind of oversight and TLC?
Correct, I do. Those are the ones we invite to our community. So as soon as we start to see that creators are either filming just a ton of content, even if they're not driving revenue. So if someone's willing to build a number of pieces of content for one brand for you, like that's a good creator. And you can definitely help them because it literally takes one viral video for them to just sell a ton of products for you. Or two, they're driving revenue through their videos consistently for you. We invite them to the community and they get direct access to us. They get direct access to the brand. They can talk through things with us. And those are the creators that end up doing really well for us.
Okay. And then is there kind of anything else in that creator process then? So obviously you're giving them the feedback, you're carving out the best ones. Is there anything else that goes into it at that stage?
Well, my team does an extra we do an extra check as well. So just because we ask them, "Hey, do you want a sample?" doesn't mean we necessarily approve their sample. If they say, "Yeah, we do want a sample," my team will go in and do an extra check just to make sure the niche matches. Like I remember one time I was trying to send lip gloss out and somehow, some way, this guy who does construction, like, got picked, right? And he's like, "Yeah, I'd love a lip gloss." And I went through his and I was like, "Okay, you're not I know you're not gonna post about lip gloss. Like, you probably just want this for someone else." It won't match it won't match the people that you're actually like, your audience is, you know? So, for me, it's like, you need to double check it, and I think a lot of people just don't. They just automatic samples. No. We do an extra set of reviews every single time.
Okay. And then as you scale then, is it just finding more creators to send out to and kind of keep going through that process?
Yeah. So we just continuously we recently launched a laundry detergent on TikTok shop. And originally we were just outreaching to a mass slew of audiences, but we've now realized that like moms, especially with back to school, are our main niche. They're the ones that are actually doing really well for us. So now we've 100% optimized to just moms for right now. And we've built out creator briefs that are mom focused. You know what I mean? So like really it's like optimizing that and only going after the creators. Once you find your niche, you really, really have to double down.
Okay. And is there a point when you'll kind of cap that demographic and then try and find like another, instead of mums, I don't know, but off the top of my head, but you try and find a different demo?
Yeah, my strategists are always trying to see who else we can reach out to. So even though we're doing, let's say, like 1,000 samples, let's say 800 of those are moms all the time, continuously. Those 200 though that are left over are really for us to test other demographics.
So
So
that is an ongoing process. Interesting. You
yeah,
mentioned there 1,000 units for samples. Can we just talk to, let's say I'm kind of brand new business
yeah.
on TikTok Shop, I'm getting started. I don't know how many samples to send. What do you kind of recommend in maybe month one onwards?
Oh, yeah. So I never recommend 1,000. Coco Clean's my client that wanted to do 1,000, and, like, their CEO, John's, like, really, really heavy on, like, "Oh, yeah, I wanna do 1,000 samples." Okay, cool, I love that. I usually recommend about 200 to 250 in the beginning, and the reason for that is because, like I said, a lot of these brands don't have brand awareness on the platform, so you really need to convince creators to start creating content for them. So really 250 is good. If we get rid of all that 250 really quickly, next month I'll ask for 500, but like, but 250 I think is like a good starting place for most brands. I have home accessories that are really expensive. We're only doing 25 to 30 for them. And that those creators I would mostly only focus on creators that are going live because you could just get more bang for your buck, honestly, if you're going live on those kind of products.
Okay. Assuming that, 250 is fine, what's the kind of timeline on seeing results and then I guess profitability?
Yeah, cold start is typically 90 days. I think I wrote a post about this on LinkedIn too, where I was like, if someone's telling you you're gonna start making noticeable revenue prior to 90 days, they're probably just trying to sign you as a client really quickly. I have some brands that do really well within the first 90 days and start to make it, but that's not everybody. So I err on the side of caution more than maybe other people do. So when I'm talking to brands, they're not only putting their trust in me, they're putting their money into my team, right? So I want to make sure that they're aware that hey, for the first 90 days, you're probably not going to see a lot of revenue coming through. You're probably going to see a lot of content coming through. You're probably going to see us outreaching to affiliates and you're probably going to start seeing people talking about your brand. But if I'm talking significant revenue, that's probably not until after like month 4. And then you start to see things compound, right? Because then by that point you have performance ads running, you probably have creators going live for you at that point, and you're just churning out the flywheel for content is just ongoing. So then you start to see compounding results.
Okay, and I think you guys have a kind of goal at 6 months, right? Can you just talk to that, and after that 3 months, what you kind of work to?
Yeah. I don't have a set goal of like 100,000 for every single brand that I sign. No, I try to be really realistic about it, right? So, like I was telling you, these higher AOV brands, like especially the home goods, like like the fridge that I bought, right? They're probably not going to make $100,000 in the at the 6 month mark because we've been sending out only 15 to 25 samples a month, right? But for brands like in even this brand, the one I was talking about, the laundry detergent, they're probably also not gonna make it $100,000 in month 6 because their product is like a $5 product, right? But will they hit 50,000? Yes. And I do a forecasting for every single brand separately for them. So I'll give them a very conservative, I'll give them a conservative, a mid, and then a very like aggressive revenue goals for each of them. So they're very aware. And that some of the brands will laugh at me because my conservative are like real conservative, Jordan. They're like, I think you're talking yourself out of this. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to be realistic just in case, things don't go as well. Like I used to have a brand who would sell coffee makers, and we thought it would be like a grand slam hit. And it turned out no, because people underpriced other makers that didn't have the same type of features on it. But our creators weren't doing a good job of educating about the differences between the $30 coffee maker and the $60 one we were selling. Right. So for all intent and purposes, I thought they'd do great. Month 6, they weren't doing great.
At what point do you know that this isn't kind of working for a brand?
The 3 month mark, you'll typically know because either you'll be sending out a ton of samples or you just won't be. Like, so, and that's happened before where at the 3 month mark, we're still not able to. We have all these samples and we have no one to really send them to because no one's really responding to the sample requests that we're sending out. And even in the people that are not posting. So you typically know if you're a good market fit by month 3, which is like what I tell a lot of the brands as well. Like by month 3, we'll know if you're a product market fit. I typically only take brands that I think are going to be a really good market fit. But like I said, I gave you that coffee maker example. Not all of them are, even though you think they're going to be.
Okay. Could you also talk to the kind of secondary benefits of running TikTok Shop and making it a success? I know the phrase halo effect is bandied around a lot. You talked about obviously building brand. I'm sure you can run a lot of this content, on Facebook ads or kind of other platforms as well. What are the other benefits of being on TikTok Shop?
Yeah, one you mentioned is like you do get a lot of UGC. So as long as you talk to your creators before about being able to use their videos on other platforms, like it's a slam dunk. You literally just sent a sample out and got a ton of UGC out for it. Like that's great. Second, there is this halo effect that everyone talks about to Amazon. I've actually seen this even prior to TikTok Shop. So like what I was telling you, we had the 1,000 creators at Wish, even though we had their own storefront and we would try to attribute every single sale to them. I remember one time this creator, she went really viral for this really cute like Nintendo Switch controller. She didn't sell a lot, but guess what? Wish.com sold out. So, her video went viral enough where we saw that happen. So, our team's been working on trying to track the halo effect. We're actually working with a couple of vendors at Amazon to try to track the halo effect, because I do think it's real. And we've seen this on some of our clients where you'll see like the search go really, really high for one product on Amazon, and at the same time or prior to that, a video really, really went viral. So you see that people go off platform and will start to search for that specific product on Amazon. So it's kind of easy to track. I think a lot of people get kind of scared because there isn't direct attribution, but I've started to notice that now brands are like, Navi, if our Amazon sales go through the roof and TikTok doesn't do that much, like we still want to do TikTok Shop because it's that brand awareness piece on TikTok that'll get people to come to our Amazon to buy.
Okay. Is there also an element of, if a lot of other brands in their category are pushing onto TikTok Shop, that they kind of need to be on the platform as well?
People do think that. People do feel that. And a lot of brands are the opposite. A lot of brands will see that nobody from their competition is on there and they're like, do we really need to be on there? And I argue on both the same way. I'm like, if you have a ton of your competition, yes, get on to TikTok Shop. I think like it's the right move, for a lot of brands to be on TikTok Shop. And for people that don't have anybody on TikTok Shop, I say, oh, be the early adopter. Like, don't look at it and say, oh, no one else is doing it, so I shouldn't do it either. No, you should look at it and be like, no one else is doing it, so I can get the early adopter advantage and get all of the market share in this space for myself on TikTok Shop.
For sure. I want to kind of flip over now and talk about kind of the creator side of things, or try and see things from their perspective. You talk there about kind of virality and some of these videos going super viral. Are there any, I don't want to say hacks, but are there any kind of best practices when trying to reverse engineer virality?
Yeah, I think always doing your research on what hooks are working, right? I think do really well. It's the same, as like as someone who's running an agency, I'm always trying to look at hooks that'll attract attention on LinkedIn. Like, okay, they're only going to read the first two sentences of my LinkedIn post. Like, what can I say in there that they'll be like, oh, I want to click to the rest of this, right? And so you'll see a lot of those in like other people that are posting on LinkedIn. I always give the same advice to people on TikTok is like, you want to make sure your hook is right. So look at what other people are doing for their hook, and try to see if that translates over, right? So for like a long time, one of the biggest hooks was like someone would talk about their life and you'd scroll through the photos and at the end they'd sell you a product. And you'd be like, "Oh my god, this was such a sad story and all they did was try to sell me a product at the end." But it was working for people, right? Like people were selling supplements this way a lot. And then I also recommend to creators to just like stick it out. I've seen videos go viral 6 months later. You'll post a video 6 months ago and all of a sudden you'll just start to be like, my God, I'm getting so many notifications, I'm getting so many likes, and it's from a post 6 months ago. And I tell brands the same thing. Like, just because you have hundreds of pieces of content and they're not driving anything doesn't mean that 6 months down the road, one of those isn't going to go viral. The algorithm randomly picks it up and it goes viral, and then that's it. Like you're golden, So really, it's just like I always tell creators to consistently post. Make sure you're posting consistently. If you have a full time job and you're also doing creators, take one day out of your weekend and film just a ton of content for the week and then post it throughout the week. I think that's the best way to do it. If you're not consistent, and this is for brands as well, if they're not consistent on their own organic traffic or their own organic TikTok, same thing, they're not going to do that well. So you continuously posting is the key. Yeah, I'd say don't be picky about the product. You never know what's gonna hit with your niche. I know a lot of creators are like, "Oh, my husband's one of them." So if he ends up listening to this, he'll know. He's like, "I don't know if this will really match like my aesthetic." And I'm like, "I think you need to think less about your aesthetic, more about your audience, right?" So like, what do you think your audience is really gonna go after? What do you think they're really gonna like? What do you think the algorithm's really gonna like? So it's like try to play around with as many different types of products as you possibly can to kind of see what can stick and what can't. Now, if you're only a beauty and wellness creator, yeah, you probably don't want to talk about like hardware tools, right? But if you're a brand new creator and you don't have a niche set up yet, try to figure out what that niche is for you, and you might be surprised at what it is.
Okay, and then how should people think through, how many commercial posts to make versus non-commercial, or just kind of about them and their life?
Yeah, so I've recently been meeting a lot of creators that are making like, oh my God, sometimes I think I'm in the wrong, like sometimes I feel like I'm in the wrong side of the industry because I have creators that are making like 70,000 to $200,000 a month off of TikTok, which is crazy. And I ask all of them this question. I'm like, how many times are you posting about one product? And most of the creators will say, we're posting about one product like 20 times a month. And I'm like, doesn't your audience get like, don't they ever? They're like, no, because nobody's going to our profile directly. They're literally seeing it on FYP. So they're not actually seeing that I posted this one product 20 times in a row. So really, I think like when you're first starting out, yeah, I do think that in order to gain followers, you need to make some more personalized pieces about who you are as a creator and kind of your values. But if really you get to that point and all you want to really do is TikTok shop, just post the same products over and over and over again and mix some pieces in there, mix some fluff pieces in there. But I do think it's like probably 80-20 at this point, where like a lot of creators will 80% is all shop, 20% is like their fluff, the more fluffier pieces that they're posting. And that's literally what I've been hearing from all of these top creators. They're like, we literally post, all we do is post like sales content.
That's insane. Again, that's
Yeah.
something I did not expect to be true. Um,
Yeah.
can we just also kind of, from the creator perspective, talk through how they should evaluate working with different brands or different products? Like, say they've got 3 or 5 brands reaching out. How do they kind of decide between them?
I think it's really easy. I think they need to send a message to the brand asking just for a little bit more details, and they're going to be able to find out really quickly which brands are actually responding and will be able to support them throughout and which ones will not be able to do that. And I think like for me as a creator, and like I said, my spouse is a creator, and so I help him with this all the time. If a brand doesn't respond to him within like 3 or 4 days, always tell them I'm like, it's probably not the right brand for you because they're not investing in brand and creator relationships, right? You only want to work with brands that I think are really investing in creator relationships because you're gonna be able to grow with them. And a lot of these creators that are making the 70,000 to 200,000, they have like 4 or 5 brands that they're really heavily focused on that they're posting with consistently, and the brands are putting money into them by increasing commissions and doing like, specialty kind of content with them. And so then the creators also putting a lot of time and effort into that relationship. So it has to be a two-way street. So I always tell him that. I'm like, if you have time, if you have so many requests that you don't know what to do with them, just send a quick note asking a simple question, see who actually responds and puts time into it, and go for those brands.
Okay, and again, you said something interesting there. So these kind of superstar creators, they're only working with a few products. They're not doing like two different products a day.
They'll try new products. That's something else I always ask them. They'll try new products and see what the traction is, but really they have like 4 or 5 big money makers. They're making them a ton of money, and those are the ones that they keep consistently posting. But then they're doing the same thing that we're doing brand side when we're trying to look for creators. They're continuously looking for more products to talk about, but really they're over indexing on these 4 or 5 until they start to see traction on other products. Because what they talk about as well is like on TikTok Shop, one of the other things is if something goes super, super, super viral, it'll be really big for like a few months. And then they're like, you just see sales drop. And so they're like, we have to continuously look for new products that we can continuously sell as well. Because eventually, even though we've built that relationship, just the nature of how TikTok Shop works, the thing will stop going viral and people will just stop buying it.
Okay. Can you just talk a little bit about your community and how that helps creators as well?
Yeah, so we haven't hard launched this, but I have creators that are already a part of this. But we are walking through calling a community Sova Collective and having creators join that and doing kind of the same thing we were doing at Wish, having open office hours. I want to do them in real life at some point in some of the major hubs in the states and beyond. And but then also really just like meeting with these creators. One of the other things that I do with creators when they join the Sova Collective is they get like a welcome packet and it has our faces on it. So they actually know who they're talking to. And like these are little things, but they make such a big difference to people. So it's like meet your team, like meet your Sova team. And it's like, a photo of me and like a photo of Ifra and like, a photo of like all of the people. And they're like, oh, like these are the people that we're working with. And it makes such a difference to creators, especially creators that are smaller. And then the other thing that we do in the community is we celebrate even if it's not for one of our brands, we celebrate their milestones. So we celebrate, them hitting $100,000 in revenue, or we celebrate them, and we celebrate their little things too. At Wish, especially, and I want to do this at Sova Collective as well once we're big enough, is celebrate their other moments, birthdays, anniversaries, kids' birthdays. We had one creator whose kids' birthdays we would send her gifts to as well. So these things sound silly, and a lot of brands are like, "Oh, why are we investing in this?" But I do think that's the future of TikTok. I think like brands that are investing in creator partnerships are really the ones that are going to do much better.
And now I just want to talk about the other services. So we've talked a lot about creators, but you also mentioned ads and live shopping. Where does that come in? And are there any other kind of services that you guys recommend?
Yeah. So ads and live shopping both come out at the later tail end of the cold start, right? Which is why typically when you're talking to brands, you're only really talking about samples, affiliate content, because really those are the first things that get the flywheel going. I typically never recommend running ads until you hit about 100 to 200 pieces of content for one SKU. So for your one hero SKU, TikTok has made it really easy now. It's well, easy-ish. It's like GMV Max is the only product they offer on TikTok Shop. You and it's ROAS based. So you decide what ROAS you want, and the algorithm helps you identify the correct content and really runs it. But then it's like, so you want to make sure that that's where real optimization comes in, right? That's when you really start to see, okay, which products are, or which, sorry, content is really, really doing well, and which products, I guess, are doing well as well. Um, and then live shopping, I bootleg live shopping as much as possible. I think live shopping, there's a lot of creators now that are going live themselves and making a lot of money. So I know, I see a lot of brands doing really big studios, and I think that's great if brands can afford it. But 50% of the brands I work with are smaller mom and pop brands that really can't afford the setup fee and really can't afford doing it. So I will find somebody on their team. Like we have one of our other clients who will be going live out of her warehouse, and she's great. So I was like, you'll do great. I don't know why you're not, like, you're a content creator in your own right. Like, I don't know why you're not going live. So she set up her own really like cheap setup in her studio, and she's going to start going live selling candles from there. And I think she's going to do really well. So for me, lives are part of the mix, but not for every single brand. I never recommend them for every single brand. It really just depends on if I think it's going to do well and if they have the resources to be able to go live. Because you want to go live, it's like 3 hours a time at a time, they say is like the magic number, although that'll probably change at some point. And you want to go live like, at least 2 to 3 times a week in the beginning. So you need to find somebody who has the bandwidth to do that. Not everybody does.
Okay, this is super interesting. So, firstly, double tapping on the ads piece. Is it basically as simple as kind of, on Facebook, like boosting a reel? You find your best performing content, put a ROAS target in, and put some ad spend behind it.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And so it really is just doing that. And like TikTok helps you by identifying the piece of content that they think you should be going after as well. So, but it's just the hard part comes into not overspending on certain pieces, right? So you consistently have to watch and make sure, okay, like the pieces that they're actually putting money against, is it actually giving us the ROAS that we want? Is it not? Do we want to start sales? Do we want to start performance marketing ads on a different hero SKU, right? So like you just want to make sure that that's all working, but otherwise, yeah,
Okay.
it's easy.
What's is there like a creative fatigue issue where you put a certain amount of spend behind an asset or a piece of content and it will just kind of die off after a few days? Or
Correct. Yeah, it will do that. But TikTok's GMV Max is good enough where when it starts to get below the ROAS threshold, they'll automatically flag it and let you know. And then the algorithm finds another piece of content that they think could do just as well. So, but I've heard a lot of brands say when we talk about GMV Max, like, oh, we've heard from friends in the industry that it'll do well for like a couple months and then it'll just die down really quickly. And the answer I always give them is that's why your agency should consistently be sending samples and getting more content for that engine. Because once you've hit the fatigue point and you don't have any more content, your ads are not going to do as well. That's why you consistently need fresh pieces of content coming into that to for us to be putting spend behind it.
and is it really just as simple as if something is working well organically, with paid it will continue to work well, or is there ever kind of a reverse effect there?
I've seen content where I'm like, "Oh, this did really well. I wonder why." And I'll notice it only did well because you put ad spend behind it. Organically, it did not do well at all. But the algorithm thought that it would do well on a performance basis, and so it spread it out and it did. So I've seen it, and then I've seen the reverse happen where it's gone very, very viral and you'll put performance spend behind it, but it's already fatigued itself out from the virality of organic, and it just doesn't hit traction after.
Interesting. Okay. I want to talk live shopping now then. So I have never kind of seen live shopping. And you said 3 hours is kind of the average session or the minimum kind of session time.
Correct.
Is that true? And what goes on for 3 hours?
It is true, and I've tested it, so I know it's true. I got told by a TikTok rep, "Navi, you have to go live over 2 hours for real traffic to start coming in." I was like, "That possibly can't be true." I my like I said, my sister-in-law, Carla, I was like, she goes live 2 hours and she's exhausted by the end of 2 hours. Could you imagine just talking to yourself for 2 hours, just, like, trying to sell a product on repeat? Like, that sounds very hard. And I'm sure it is, but literally I asked her one day, I was like, "Can we go live for over 2 hours and see what it does?" And they were right. The algorithm at 2 hours somehow starts to push it out to just a larger audience. And so there are brands out there like Mary Ruth Organics who goes live 23 hours a day out of 24 hours, Jordan. They have setups. I don't know if it's just one setup or setups all across the country. I don't know how they do it, but they have different hosts that just hand it off to each other for 23 hours a day. And they are probably one of the ones that are, like, killing it. I buy all of my Mary Ruth Organics from TikTok Shop because they do so many flash sales during their live, so I, like, wait for my product to go on sale and then buy it. So they're doing it really well. And I know the CMO, he like talks at a bunch of events about how they really doubled down on lives, right? And so for them, it's working. So I think, and it's also, it's one of those things where it's an educational piece. So it's like QVC, but you can actually talk to your host instead of just buying it on the phone. You can actually ask a bunch of questions, and your host will answer those questions. Either the host will answer or the moderator will answer your questions before you buy it. And so it takes away like that component of just buying on an impulse, where you can actually hear what other people are asking, see other people reviewing the product. Because a lot of times when you go live for these brands, you'll have evangelists come in and just sit in your lives for whatever reason. I don't understand the psychology, because I guess I don't have enough time to sit in there. But like, especially, when we started True Botanicals, a lot of consistent shoppers will come back and be like, "We loved your products. They're amazing." And when other people are like, "I don't know, I'm on the fence." They're like, "No, no, buy it. Like, it's amazing. I'm telling you." So they're doing the selling for you as well, which I think is great.
So, in terms of the actual experience, is it kind of a mix between QVC and actually being in like a shop where you can talk to a retail assistant?
Correct. Yeah. I always tell people it's as close as getting into a store as you possibly can. Like, there is no other experience out there. Amazon does lives, it's not the same. They're very more curated, and like, these are like really, like I told you, I bought a fridge because the lady literally, it's literally like when you go to Costco and you get a demo, it's really like a demo, but I don't have to leave my house. I can sit inside my house and do it from wherever I am.
And it's let's pretend I'm the host here. Am I just kind of talking about the product, features, benefits, answering
Yep.
questions? Is there anything else that goes on in the live?
Yeah, I think so. For the lives that we do, I always tell my hosts, like, I know it's going to sound weird, but just circle back to your core values every few minutes, right? So like, because you're going to get new people all the time. You want to also, that you need a hook to bring them in to the live. So you'll see like on lives, like they'll have like, I don't know, postings like on the side, right? Like green screen postings on the side to get people to come in. But really, it's what you're talking about that's going to bring them in. So I'm like, consistently talk about your sales, consistently talk about the values of your product, and consistently just keep saying, oh, like, if you're joining, like, do you have any new questions? Or like, bring a hook in. Giveaways do really well to bring people into the lives, and then free gift with purchase. And TikTok has made it so that all of that stuff is available at the host's fingertips. So if they want to run a flash sale, they can do it right there. If they want to run a giveaway, they can do it right there and announce the giveaway. The hard part is that when you run a giveaway and you get like hundreds of people to start to watch, how do you retain those hundreds of people after the giveaway's over? You go right into a flash sale, right? To like get into entice people to stay. So it is kind of a science, and it does take a little while to like figure it out. I think I always tell brands the first month you're going live is just test month. Figure out what your audience actually likes, the timing, figure out what timing actually works. If you can only go live 3 days a week, okay, what time should you go live? Afternoon. I test out everything. I'll test out morning, afternoon, evening consistently for a month to see which ones perform the best on different days.
Okay. And do you give your brands not scripts but kind of like rough talking points?
I do. And I'm usually on the lives with them. So I'll be on the back end with them. You can be on the back end. I'll be on the back end with them, sending them messages and being like, this is what people are looking at the most. Like, talk about this, like, talk about this. And I'll be their moderator as well. So I'll talk to the audience directly. Eventually, brands feel comfortable enough doing it on their own. And, I also, because I've done a little bit of everything, I have a production background as well. So I've done like production. And so for me, it's like really easy to kind of hop into there. It's just, eventually I have to figure out like what the ROI for me is to be sitting in there with the brands for like 9 hours a week. But maybe I'll have somebody doing it with them eventually. But brands typically, and especially hosts, especially if they're founder led hosts, they'll feel comfortable enough where they're like, Navi, okay, now we're good. Like, we needed you in the beginning because we thought we needed a crutch, but really we can do this on our own and we're good to go. So
And what does I know you talked there about kind of having a big set and stuff, but what does the production look like? Let's say for a small mum and pop type business.
yeah, I will send them out the stuff that they need. And it's really, they don't need a lot. I actually have probably the same setup in my house right now. They need a nice ring light. They need a beautiful background, preferably with product, right? So preferably something with product or some kind of branding. And then they need something to hold an iPad up so they can actually see the messages coming in from creators, because they're probably going to be live on their phone. They're not going to be able to read all the messages on the phone. So have something up to actually have the back end of TikTok, either a laptop. Like I had one of my creators, she just puts the laptop to the side and she can actually see it. She has her phone in front of her, a couple of lights running, and she's in product and she's good to go. That's it.
And do you need someone else, or can you just do it yourself like that lady
You
you
can do it
mentioned?
yourself. You can do it
Oh,
yourself.
okay.
Yeah.
And this is 3 hours a day, a couple of times a week.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, that is
Minimum.
insane. What
Yep.
kind of like viewing numbers should someone expect if that's a
Yeah, in the beginning, you're not gonna get a lot, so you're gonna feel like you're talking to just a few people in the beginning. There's a couple of things that'll help push more traffic to your, and these are all just guesses. Like, the one of the things about TikTok is you'll never know what's actually happening on the back end. They don't tell anybody. So it's like just trying to uncover what is happening. But what I've noticed is that if you're organically posting on your own TikTok, you're posting about your live prior to you going live. You're promoting your live prior to you going live, and then actually going live gives you the highest chance of having as much organic traffic come onto your live as possible. In the beginning, you're probably only going to see 12 to like 15 people in your live. I would just say keep going. The more you go live, the more the algorithm starts to push out your live. The longer you're going live, the more it starts to push it out. So really it's just like use the first few, like I said, as practice. And then you'll start to see more and more people come in. So for like, and then depending on the hook, so like at True Botanicals, we had a sale recently. We were seeing like hundreds of people come into our lives, and the lives did like really, really well. And then right after the sale ended, it went back to its normal numbers, which is like 50 to 100 people consistently in the room, with you. So it's not it's the audience isn't a lot. I think you'll see a lot of other brands, and I know brands will look at other brands when they do this. They'll see other brands have like thousands of people. One, they're putting performance marketing spend behind their lives, which eventually you can do. And two, they've probably been live like 6 hours at this point. So like the algorithm's like really pushing them. So yeah.
It's very interesting. And in terms of results, did you say a month before? Is it after a month of kind of consistent, 3, 5 times a week, you should start to see some kind of return?
Correct. Yeah. For everybody I've gone live, we start to see sales pretty quickly. Probably the second or third live, you start to see some sales. And then it really starts to compound. But it's the audience that you really start to notice because at that time, you've probably honed in on what time works best for you. And because you've been promoting your lives enough, now people know that this brand's going to go live and they know that you're going to offer them a flash sale. So that's the other thing that I always say, be aggressive with your sales on lives because that's what's going to get people to sell more. Um, or buy more. And then also creators, finding other creators that go live by themselves that have a huge audience is also one of the other things I always tell brands. I'm like, if you can't go live yourself, like let's say you just don't have the time to go live because like you don't have the bandwidth, find creators. We help you find creators that will go live for you.
I want to kind of move on now from the playbook, and my kind of next question on this is very macro. Has TikTok Shop kind of changed the economics of influencers and maybe slightly killed the traditional model?
Yeah, but it's gonna go back. It's cyclical. It's always cyclical. I've been in this industry long enough where like I remember when brands tried to go affiliate commission only with creators, and a lot of creators went with it, and influencers were like, "Oh no, like our way of getting flat fees is like died," and they freaked out. And then it went back to only flat fees. And I'm starting to see that now on TikTok Shop where certain creators are like, "Oh yeah, no, like we only will work with you if you give us a certain flat fee in the beginning, right?" What I tell brands is though that there are enough creators out there that want to do the performance marketing piece. And honestly, they make more money doing it that way. So I know they feel like they'll probably get a larger upside if they do a flat fee. But one, they limit the amount of brands that are willing to work with them, right? And then two, like their commissions are typically lower for brands that are offering a flat fee because economics. So if someone's offering you a $300 flat fee, they're probably only going to offer you a 10% commission versus if you just went commission only, they'd be able to offer you like a 15%. So I think there's that piece. But it will go back. It will go back and forth. It always does in influencer marketing. We're going to see brands go 100% back to the Wild West of paying creators probably thousands of dollars and then back to, well, now we only want to pay them performance-based fees.
Okay. And in the next kind of 12 months, couple of years, where do you think TikTok Shop is headed?
I think it's just gonna mature even more. I think right now there's been this uncertainty this year about TikTok being banned and maybe being gone from the US. And maybe it's a controversial take for me to say, but I think I've posted this on LinkedIn as well. There's too much money being generated by TikTok for it just to disappear. It's just that's just exactly what it is, right? So I know a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, they're gonna." I've had people reach out, be like, "Oh, I heard they're making a US app, and so will they transfer everything over?" Like, duh, yeah, of course they will. Like, they're not going to lose the billions of dollars they're making and the trajectory they're making with these brands. They put a lot of focus into building relationships with brands and building relationships with agencies for it to just go away. It doesn't make sense.
Okay. And then for you guys to kind of help businesses take advantage of that kind of boom and what's going on, can you just talk to what you do at Sova?
Yeah, so we help literally end to end. We take brands that maybe don't have the resources to do TikTok shop on their own, and we do everything. We set up their TikTok shop for them. We do all the SEO, PDP. We will manage all the affiliate outreach. We'll manage the sample fulfillment. We'll even help with managing order fulfillment on the TikTok side. We do all the violation management if something like that happens. We help manage the relationship with our TikTok reps. And then also do the lives and the performance marketing as well. So basically everything end to end. I have some brands that are really in it, in the back end with us, and I have some brands that are like, we just don't have the time, so just do it all for us. So kind of everything.
And I know when we spoke before, you had a very cool mission and what you're trying to do at the agency from kind of a brand perspective and stuff like that. Can you just talk to that as well?
Yeah. So I think we talk about this internally a lot, but there are a lot of brands out there that, so I kind of like a 50-50 philosophy when it comes to this. I have some brands that are larger brands that maybe have never gone live on TikTok before, and I want to bring them live on TikTok because I think it makes sense for them. And I think a lot of people are like, no, these are mom and pop shops that are on there. Yeah, a lot of them are on there, but I think larger brands need to be on there. But then also, I have this philosophy of those smaller mom and pop. I think maybe because my parents were entrepreneurs, they didn't have a lot of support, right? So I try to offer support to a lot of shops that maybe don't have the funding to do it. And I'll offer them more of an educational approach where it's like, let me teach you how to do this versus let me just do this for you. Um, and then I also have like a vision for my agency just internally as well, where like I want a place that parents and people that have other obligations can come and feel just like they're supported and they have this supportive environment in an agency. So it just so happens that all of my employees right now are moms. And so I don't know if that's like organically just how it is, but like my main strategist is one of my best mom friends. And I hired her 3 years ago at Wish. So she worked with me at Wish. And then she follows me everywhere I go, and she lives like 2 streets down that way, and yeah, and our kids are best friends at school, and that's how we met. Our kids were in kindergarten together, and now they're starting 4th grade together. And so that's also like a vision I have for myself. And to be honest, Jordan, it sells. It's like interesting, but like when people hear about how I have loyalty and how like, a lot of the people that I hire are people that I've worked with before because like there's just that loyalty. A lot of brands will be like, "Oh yeah, we want to work with you." Like we love, like I'll introduce them to my team. And I also introduce them to my offshore talent. I know that sounds controversial because a lot of agencies they shy away from mentioning that they're using offshore talent. I've known my offshore talent for like 6 years now. My assistant is offshore talent. She's been my assistant for years prior because I needed house management help, and she used to help me manage my house from the Philippines. And so they will be on calls. Everybody knows their name. They'll be on calls. They know that they're coordinating all the efforts, and I try to make them feel as part of the agency as possible. I give them PTO as well, and I don't think a lot of other people do for offshore talent, but I do. I give them PTO, and they accrue it based on hours that they work, and they get 3 holidays they get to pick per year. So really, I'm also trying to just like create a space where an agency that I would have loved working for when I was starting off in my career.
No, I love that. Can you just
Yeah.
talk to kind of team structure and I know you scaled up quite a lot. What does that look
Yeah.
like now?
Yeah, so we have a pod that works on about 8 clients. And the pod is a TikTok shop strategist, which is usually stateside. And then we have 2 coordinators that are usually offshore or near shore, I guess you can call them. They manage all 8 of their clients end to end. The strategist is really responsible for the account management piece and making sure that the strategies we're following are sound, and the creators that we're reaching out to are sound. The actual recruitment and affiliate management is done by those coordinators. Um, I'm in there consistently as well, somewhere like floating over because I like to be, especially with like because I'm doing all the sales myself. So then I like to make sure that the clients are handed off properly. Currently, we have 2 pods that are running all of our clients, but yeah, like you said, Jordan, we're growing very quickly. It's a good problem to have. I don't think I have enough hours in my day to sell um, as much as I want to. So right now, it's like that's also something I'm learning now. I like to be a part of everything, and John always asks me like, "Where's your highest ROI for your time?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've never thought about it that way, but I guess you're right." And so I have to like, juggle and like move things around because it might not be the right time for me to be sitting there.
I think that a lot of agency owners that care often stunt their growth by kind of caring too much and getting too in the weeds, right?
That's right. Yeah, I agree with that, and that's one of the lessons that I get from John consistently. Like, I signed up for a all-week conference last week when we first started, and when we first started, we thought it was okay for me to be gone for a week, and then, like, last week, John's like, "Oh my god, you could have been selling, like, you've been closing so many clients, like, you could have been selling this week." And he's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Yeah, but I kinda already, went." But then guess what? I sold a client last week at the conference. So I guess, like, it was worth it to go, but, it was like one of those things where now I'm consistently having to ask myself, and there's that weird tightrope that you have to walk where it's like, yeah, I know my team knows delivery really well, but then as an agency owner, I'm like, I don't want 100% hand off delivery either because we're starting to just scale, right? And so it's like trying to figure out that right way to do it, where I'm not like stepping on people's toes, but also I know enough where when I'm talking to these brands, I'm aware of what's happening on their accounts.
How have you found to best kind of balance that?
I do a lot of team meetings. So I think like I try not to go to the client directly. I think like I do a lot of team meetings. My team's like very aware. Like when I have time, they look at my calendar and they're like, yeah, we know. So I'll Slack them. I'm like, can you guys hop on a 15 minutes? You guys can walk me through what this client is doing. Because I want to know, because that client's probably going to call me. All the clients have I think we're small enough right now where all the clients have my number. Um, and when I did the transition over to the first pod, a lot of them were nervous, but I think they're now happy with the team that they have. But in the beginning, I used to get a lot of calls directly.
Which isn't always great, right? Being that involved.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Cool. And then you mentioned kind of the conference and kind of how that worked out. What have you found for you guys have been the best channels for lead gen?
Oh, yeah. So our lead gen, and then this leads into exactly what you do. Cold emails actually been like our insanely successful lead gen platform. And then LinkedIn does really well for me as well. So we post like 4 to 5 times a week on LinkedIn and get a really, really good response. I also think it just helps. Like one of the cool things that I've seen since starting an agency that I did not think would exist is I have a lot of people that I met like through my 15-year career that'll be like, "Oh, we saw that you started your own agency. We have these friends at XYZ brand. We'd love for you to sign them up." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like networking actually works." You know? So like cuz a lot of people especially when they first start their career they're like, "Oh, networking just sounds so hard." But here I am like reaping the rewards of networking the past 15 years now. But cold email really seems to work as well. I didn't think it would because I always ignore cold email myself. I get too many of them. But a lot of these brands will be like, "Oh my god, we've been thinking about TikTok Shop. We just didn't know who to talk to. So can we hop on a call?" I'm like, "Yeah, great." That's literally probably 90% of my calls are from cold email.
Wow. And is that just
Yeah.
leading with kind of, we do TikTok shop, here's some of the results, or is that a specific kind of offer or
It's specific. We've done a couple of campaigns where it's like, "We see you're on TikTok Shop, but you're still in the cold start, and we can help you." Or, "We see that you're on TikTok, but you're not on TikTok Shop." So those type of things.
okay, interesting. And I guess that leads me to the next question. Have you found kind of working with enterprise brands is better, or do you still like the kind of mom and pop stuff because of your kind of background there?
I think a mix. I have some enterprise clients and really like that was when I first started Sova, that was like my main goal to go after, right? Was enterprise clients in the beginning to build up ICP because I have a big network of enterprise clients that I thought would do really, really well. John as well. So we're still going after them. Organically, though, what's happened with all of my other outreach is that I've been getting a lot of smaller brands that are interested. Um, and some of the brands, I feel like it'll pay off later. Some of the brands just aren't ready right now because the retainer is, even though the retainer feels small to enterprise clients, for some mom and pop shops, the retainer is like something they can't afford right away. So it becomes hard for them to figure it out. I really lead though. I think I do well in sales because I don't lead with sales. I lead with education. First question I ever ask is like, how much do you know about TikTok Shop? Do you want me to walk you through what it is? And you will not believe the amount of brands that don't know that TikTok has its own like checkout. They think it's going to go to their D2C site. And I'm like, no, no, no. It's like one click shop. I'm like, let me show you. And then I'll show them. They're like, oh my gosh. And I've literally closed one call deals because I'll walk them through it. And then I'm like, okay, let me walk you through my retainer. I'll walk them through retainer and like all the performance and all that. And at the end, I'm like, okay, so do you have any questions? They're like, nope, just send us a contract. Like we're ready to sign. Like you're the first person who actually sat down and explained what TikTok Shop was to us from a consumer perspective. Not just what it can offer us, but like how easy it is to use from a consumer perspective. And so we're sold. Done.
Okay. I want to touch on what you said there about potentially not being able to help all of the smaller businesses.
Mhm.
Is there a point down the line where you kind of launch some kind of course maybe where you kind of give away all the best practices and they can kind of implement it themselves, and maybe it's, a weekly call with your team as well? Would you do that?
Yeah, I think that's smart to do, and I think that's something that I wanna do. I've had a couple of brands, like, reach out to do that. I think some of the other things that I wanna eventually start offering is kind of like an incubator program for these smaller brands where maybe, like, we do it on a performance only basis, right? So, like, we don't do a retainer. I think and I explained to these brands as well, I'm like, "I'm also brand new." So at this point, it's just me trying to, like, cover my costs. But, like, it's those things where I think you have to hedge your bets because one of those small mom and pop shops might be the next viral thing on TikTok. You never know. So I'm already kind of offering them education when they have questions. And then some of them, a lot of brands have also been affected just by the tariffs that happen. So a lot of people have inventory issues right now and aren't ready to, they don't have the inventory demands to meet on TikTok Shop. Um, but that said, I see momentum of TikTok Shop just continuously going up with the amount of interest we're getting. As a new agency, I can only imagine what the established agencies are also looking at.
Okay, but just to kind of round off this point, you're not saying that you just want to work with kind of enterprise businesses, right? It's kind of, an agency that will serve anyone.
Yeah, I actually have a 50-50 client mix. I would probably say 50% enterprise, 50% smaller, like mom and pop shop brands. So it's a decent mix. I was like, oh, I wonder what our ICP is going to be like. I wonder if we're going to be wellness or be no. It's like a mix of everything, which I kind of prefer. I kind of like being in a mix of everything. My team likes it too. They get to do different things on different days. It's interesting. My ADHD brain gets tickled by having to do different things with different brands. So I like it.
Very cool. And what is the kind of goal for you with the agency then? Where do you want to take it over the next few years?
I honestly just I wanna work with brands that I'm excited about working with day in, day out, and I tell brands that when I'm meeting with them, like, if I vibe with them really well, I am just very honest. I'm like, "I would honestly love to work with you. Like, what would it take for me to get to work with you?" Because that's what I want. I wanna be excited every day. I wanna be excited to work with one of like, I have clients that are in New York that'll text me at 6 AM because it's their 9 AM time, and I'll, like, wake up and, like, I wanna be happy that they're texting me at 6 AM, you know what I mean? And I think, like, I've been through so many larger companies and so many larger brands. The number one thing that I'm starting to realize as I'm closing in on, like, 40 is that I just wanna be happy with what I'm doing, and working this hard right now, hustling so hard, like, John checks in on me all the time because he's like, "I'm afraid you're gonna burn out," and I'm like, "I am so invigorated and excited, I don't think I'm gonna burn out." Like, I think that's what I wanna continue building, is this excitement. I'm so excited for every day to start, and it's one of the first places that I've been at, and it's interesting, I have a lot of bosses that reached out to me after, and they're like, "We always knew you'd do, like, great things. You were just always stuck in the cog of a machine." So I think I was always just kind of built to do something like this, and yeah, I'm excited every day, and I want my team to be excited every day.
That's very cool. Final question before we round things off then is, obviously you're kind of new to this agency owner space.
Yeah.
What would you say to an agency owner that's, where you were and is, just getting started today?
I would say I give this advice to everybody, even new moms. I always say just be nice to yourself. Be kind to yourself. I think it's so hard to be like, "Oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this." That's where my project management, lifestyle and, like, skill set really comes into play, and John actually does this really well as well. We will sit down and map out our goals for the quarter, and that's it. Those are our goals for the quarter. We don't even if something else comes in, unless, like, it's, like, emergency 911, like, we have to do it, we do not steer away from those goals that we set for the quarter. Those are the things that we're gonna do, and that's it. So I think one of the mistakes that I've seen a lot of agency or, like, just new business owners, because 'cause I've been surrounded by business owners my whole life, is they will bite off as much as they like everything, right? They're like, "We can do this, we can do this, we can do this." John and I are like, "No, put your blinders on. This is what we want for the next 90 days. This is all we're gonna focus on." And we meet weekly to see how we're doing on those. And that's like otherwise I would be going crazy. Do you know the amount of times in my head I'm like, I wonder if I want to start like if I want to do like an AI influencer. I'm like, no, 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 no. 90 days. Like this is not part of my 90-day goal, Navi. Stop thinking about it. So it helps me stay really, really consistent on what I want to accomplish in those 90 days. And I think 90 days is like long enough and short enough where like it feels right.
Shiny object syndrome is to be avoided.
Yep. I have the worst shiny object syndrome.
For sure. Okay. Well, look, Navi, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you here. Final questions in terms of, brands that want to work with you. Where can they find you? Where can they learn more and what should they do?
Yeah, definitely. Sovasocial.com. They can learn more about what we do and they can book a call, or I'm on LinkedIn, Navi Singh. And I post consistently. Actually, I post a lot of educational content. So if they're interested in my philosophy and diving deeper, my posts will really give them insight into that.
Very cool. Thank you. Okay. Navi, thank you so much again for coming on. It's been a pleasure. And I've learned a ton as well, which is
Awesome. Thanks, Jordan, so much.
thank you. Scaling an ecom brand is hard. That's why we're on a mission to share as much info as we can to help make it easy. From weekly interviews with the biggest names in the space to case studies, brand breakdowns, and tips and tricks, and much, much more. Subscribe so you don't miss out.